Assalamualaikum everyone, how are you all? Today it's the 11th lecture and we will be studying unit number 9, that is advice and suggestion. Introduction. What do we mean when we say I need some advice or suggestion? Well, it means that we need some ideas, some remedies, some proposals, some recommendations, and of course some guidance. Well, you know it, I know it कि अगर हम किसी से कोई सजेशन मांग रहे हैं या किसी से कोई एडवाइस मांग रहे हैं तो जिस चीज़ को लेकर मांग रहे हैं इसका मतलब है कि हम उस पर अपना डिसीजन नहीं ले पा रहे और हमें किसी दूसरे बंदे के आइडियाज़ की हेल्प की ज़रूरत है इन द फॉर्म ऑफ द आइडियाज़, इन द फॉर्म ऑफ द रेमेडीज, प्रपोजल्स, कुछ recommendations या of course some guidance. All of us need advice and suggestions for something or other. हम सबको advice और suggestions की ज़रूरत होती है at some point of time in our life. कभी किसी चीज़ को लेकर, कभी किसी चीज़ को लेकर. Sometimes हम कहीं पर stuck हो जाते हैं, हम कुछ किसी चीज़ को लेकर फैसला नहीं कर पाते. हम उस किसी चीज़ को लेकर अपना डिसीजन ले भी लें पर हम उसको इम्प्लीमेंट नहीं कर पाते, उसके ऊपर एक्ट नहीं कर पाते. एंड देन वी नीड एडवाइस और अ सजेशन ऑफ द अदर पर्सन. There are ways of giving advice and suggestions, and the following words and expressions are all used to make suggestions and give advice to people. बहुत सारे तरीके हैं एडवाइस देने के, सजेशन देने के, and today we are going to learn few of them. Should. We use a word should when we advise or suggest something. For example, you should try to practice English. You shouldn't translate too much. Why don't you join an English club? You ought to read more. If I were you, I would. If I were you, I would watch more television. Advise. I advise you to buy a good dictionary. Let me give you some advice. She gave me a very useful advice to buy a good dictionary. I suggest, propose, think. I suggest we meet tomorrow at 6 p.m. I propose to get the house painted before rains start. I think you should take a break from work. Let's meet for lunch. Shall we watch a film? How about making nice pakoras for tea? Advice and then the formula verb form that we use while doing it. I don't think you should work so hard. Use I don't think you should plus the base form of the verb in the statement. Look at this. I don't think you should, and then I have used the base form of the verb to complete my statement. Base form means the first form of the verb. You ought to work less. You ought to plus the base form of the verb in a statement. You ought not to work so hard. You ought not to plus the base form of the verb in a statement. If I were you, if I were in your position, if I were in your shoes, I wouldn't work so hard. Use if I were plus you, or in your position, or your shoes, plus I wouldn't or I would plus base form of the verb in a statement, a form of the conditional to. You had better work less. Use you had better plus the base form of the verb in a sentence or a statement. You shouldn't or you should work less. Use you should or you shouldn't plus the base form of the verb in a statement. Whatever you do, don't work so hard. Use whatever you do plus the imperative. Suggestion. Here we were talking about the advice, and now we'll talk about the suggestion. Formula verb form suggestion. Why don't you slash we go to a movie? Why don't you go to a movie, or why don't we go to a movie? Use the base form of the verb in a question. We or you could go to a movie. Use the base form of the verb in a statement. Let's go to a movie. Use the base form of the verb with let's. What about going to a movie? Use the ing form of the verb in a question. How about going to a movie? Use the ing form of the verb in a question. I suggest you we go to a movie. Use suggest plus object plus verb. Use suggest plus object plus verb in the base form in a statement. I think it's very easy to understand, so I don't really need to elaborate it to you, because it's very, whatever is written on in the table, it's in simple English and you can easily understand it. Clauses. Main or independent clause, dependent or subordinating clause. There are different elements of a clause, and these are subject, predicate, object, complement, adjacent. Alright, I'm sorry, I was just checking on the pronunciation of the word. It's adjunct, something that is of the secondary importance. A complete sentence expresses a complete thought. The elements subject and predicate are easily identifiable as there is an agreement between them. What are they saying? They're saying a complete sentence expresses a complete thought. जो complete sentence होता है वो आपको complete, it gives you a complete thought. The elements subject and predicate are easily identifiable, और आपको उसमें पता चल जाता है कि sentence का which part is the subject and which part is the predicate. The elements which are necessary to complete the clause may be either an object or a complement. Elements which are necessary to complete the clause, चाहे वो object हो या फिर complement. Although objects and complements are not always obligatory elements in the clause, yet they are important because they complement what is being described and provide information which is essential to the passage of the clause. So object or complement gives you the essential message of the clause. Examples: subject, predicate, object. Ali smokes a cigarette. She likes oranges. Subject, predicate, complement. Mariam is a teacher. Junaid seems tired. Your house looks beautiful. Got it? Now you can see the difference between the object and the complement. But if you just remove the object or the complement, you would feel incomplete. But if you have an object and the complement in your sentence would be complete and will be in a complete sense. Adjunct may supply information which is additional to the message, and adjunct supplies the why, where, when and how type of information. किसको आंसर करता है? Why को, where को, when को और how को. Read some examples where the adjunct is being used. Subject, predicate, object and adjunct. He was turning the handle furiously. They had a holiday last year. The extra information, the secondary information, the answer to why, where, when and how is called adjunct. We can say that the adjunct tends to be most mobile and may be used in different positions in a clause structure. For example, furiously he turned the handle. It can come in the beginning, it can come in the end, or it can come after the subject. Furiously he turned the handle. He furiously turned the handle. He turned the handle furiously. There are four types of clauses. These are main or independent clause, subordinate or dependent clause, relative or adjective clause, noun clause. Main or independent clause and subordinate or dependent clause. Main or independent clauses are normally referred to as sentences, not clauses. Main और independent clauses normally sentences होते हैं, not clauses. Main और independent clauses can stand by themselves as a separate sentence. मतलब ये कि अगर आपके मेन क्लॉज के साथ अगर आपका हेल्पिंग क्लॉज नहीं है फिर भी वो आपको एक कंप्लीट सेंस दे रहा है. सो इन itself it's a sentence. Therefore, a main clause is a clause that is not introduced by a subordinating term, right? It's not something that is introduced by subordinating term. It does not modify anything, and it can stand alone as a complete sentence. It doesn't modify anything. It doesn't need help of anything. It itself is a complete sentence. The ability to recognize a clause and to know when a clause is capable of acting as an independent unit is essential to correct writing and especially helpful in avoiding sentence fragments and run-on sentences. What is it? The ability to recognize a clause and to know when a clause is capable of acting as an independent unit. आपको एक तो if you are good at taking out the clause, the complete, the independent clause, and that when it can act as an independent unit is essential to correct writing and especially helpful in avoiding sentence fragments and run-on sentences. It helps you in writing good. Every main or independent clause will follow this pattern. Subject plus verb is equal to complete thought. It gives you a complete thought, complete sense. अगर आप इसके साथ, for example, if it's a sentence that has a main clause as well as the subordinating clause, and you take off the subordinating clause, the main clause would itself be a complete sentence. Read some examples. Lazy students complain. Students is equal to subject. Complain is equal to verb. So it's a complete sentence. Lazy students complain. Pepsi spilled over the glass and splashed onto the counter. Pepsi is equal to subject. Spilled, splashed is equal to verbs. Got it? Pepsi spilled over the glass and splashed onto the counter. Number 2. So these were the examples of the independent clause. Number 2. Subordinate or dependent clause. The clause that cannot stand alone and is dependent or in need of a support, or it depends on an independent clause to express a complete thought is called a subordinate or dependent clause. वो clause जो किसी words या sentence या main clause के बगैर जिसका मतलब जो है वो complete नहीं होता, that's called the dependent clause. The clause that depends on the independent clause for the complete meaning is called the dependent clause. The important point to remember is that every sentence must have at least one main clause expressing one complete thought. Otherwise, you have a fragment, which is a major error in writing. When you're writing something, keep this in your head that every sentence should have one main clause. ठीक है? That would give you a complete thought. If you wouldn't be taking care of it, you wouldn't be able to write a good piece of writing. The subordinate clause is created by using a subordinating conjunction or dependent word or a connector. The subordinate clause कैसे बनता है? It is created by subordinating conjunction or dependent word or a connector. These connectors join independent clauses, thus creating nicely balanced sentences. Connectors क्या करते हैं? Independent clause को जो independent clause को join करते हैं with the independent clause और एक balanced sentence बनाते हैं. Here is a list of some of the frequently used subordinate conjunctions: after, although, as, because, before, even if, even though, if, in order that, once, provided that, rather than, since, so that, then, that, though, unless, until, when, whenever, where, whereas, wherever, whether, while, why. All these are the subordinate conjunctions. Now let us read some examples. Once Ali smashed the cup. Once is a subordinate conjunction. Ali is a subject. Smashed is a verb. Until Mr. Somro has his first cup of coffee, then what? It needs somebody. It needs another portion. Until is equal to subordinate conjunction. Mr. Somro is a subject. Has is a verb. What else? What happened after that? Don't you think there's something wrong with the above examples? Yes, they are incomplete because they do not have an independent clause. Dependent clauses and they need some more words to give the complete meaning. Remember this point. A subordinate clause cannot stand alone as a sentence because it does not provide a complete thought. Subordinate clause, जैसे कि ये दोनों subordinate clauses थे, इनको independent clauses की ज़रूरत है to give a complete meaning. This is what they are telling you. A subordinate clause cannot stand alone as a sentence because it does not provide a complete thought. The reader is left wondering, so what happened? What happened after that? Like I said, when I read the sentence, until Mr. Somro has his first cup of coffee, उसके बाद what happened? Yeah, what happens? Once Ali smashed the cup, so what happened? Did he get scolding? Did he run off? It's a fragment. Until Mr. Somro has his first cup of coffee, so what happens? Is he too sleepy to work or is he irritable? It's a fragment again. So you need to attach a subordinate clause to a main clause to express a full meaning. Subordinate, the dependent clause, and the main clause is the independent clause. दोनों को जोड़कर when you make a sentence, that would be giving you a complete meaning. Subordinate conjunctions plus subject plus verb is equal to incomplete thought. Got it? Subordinate conjunction plus subject plus verb is equal to incomplete thought. So here is an exercise. Try and complete the above the incomplete clause, incomplete sentences. Whenever lazy students yawn, what? Whenever lazy students complain, Mrs. Rustam throws chalk at their heads. So that's now, if you would just write whenever lazy students complain, it would be incomplete. But if you would write it this way, whenever lazy students complain, Mrs. Rustam throws chalk at their heads, it would give you a complete meaning. Now you see, if you will just read whenever lazy students complain, you'll feel incomplete. But if you just read Mr. Rustam throws chalk at their heads, you would be able to extract the meaning out of it. So rest of you two, you would be doing as Pepsi spilled over the glass and splashed onto the counter. What happened then? Because my dog loves bones. What happened then? What's with the dog then? Okay. The important point to remember about subordinate clauses is that they can never stand alone as complete sentences. To complete the thought, you must attach each subordinate clause to a main clause. Generally, the punctuation looks like this: main clause plus no punctuation plus subordinate clause. Subordinate clause plus comma plus main clause. ठीक है? Subordinate clause पहले लग रहा है, अगर उसके बाद you'll put a comma and then you'll put a main clause. Here is another exercise that you would solve, and then we'll discuss in the class. The exam, the things that you have to, the clauses that are given to you, and you have to put a main clause with them. Even though the chicken was covered in oil, unless Hina finishes her maths homework, because the dress was too expensive, until the teacher was in the class. You have to complete these sentences on your own, and then we'll discuss when we'll be in the class. Then comes reading, facts and opinions. What is a fact? A fact is a statement of what is true or real. It is based on evidence. Fact क्या है? It's based on reality. Something that's real, that is truth, is called a fact. What is an opinion? An opinion is a statement that gives one's personal view. This statement may or may not be true. फैक्ट क्या है? एक यूनिवर्सल ट्रूथ, एक रियलिटी. और ओपिनियन क्या है? किसी बंदे की राय. ठीक है, वो अब ठीक भी हो सकती है और गलत भी हो सकती है. सो देयर इज अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन अ फैक्ट एंड एन ओपिनियन. Whenever we read something, some of the statements can be facts and others are the writer's opinions. जब भी हम कुछ पढ़ते हैं तो कुछ statements जो हैं वो facts होते हैं और उसी writing में कुछ statements जो हैं वो writer की opinions होते हैं. A good reader should be able to distinguish facts from opinions. जो अच्छा reader होता है उसको पता चल जाता है that what is the fact in the paragraph, what are the facts in the paragraph, and which sentences just the opinion of the writer. Read some examples. The moon is about 238,900 miles from Earth. Your heart beats more than 100,000 times a day. So both of these are the facts. All these sentences are facts. These facts may be right or wrong, but the reader could check up on them. A fact is a statement that can be proven true. Opinions, on the other hand, are value judgments. They express the writer's point of view or his or her way of looking at things. For example, men are more intelligent than women. Pakistanis are friendlier than other people, right? These two sentences are the opinions. They can be like ये सच भी हो सकता है और गलत भी हो सकता है. These sentences are opinions, and whether we accept or agree with the writer's opinion will usually depend on how well the writer supports them with convincing reasons or arguments. Now it depends on you if you feel like agreeing with the writer or disagreeing with the writer. अगर तो आपकी राइटर ने बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग सेंटेंसेस के साथ अपनी ओपिनियन को सपोर्ट किया हुआ है आपको कन्विंस करने के लिए, तो यू वुड फील लाइक सेइंग यस टू हिज ओपिनियंस. एंड इफ ही लाइक अगर उस ऐसा कुछ नहीं है और वो अपने ओपिनियंस को सपोर्ट नहीं कर सका विद द कन्विंसिंग रीजंस, यू वोंट फील लाइक सेइंग यस टू द राइटर्स ओपिनियन. And comes the writing, narrative writing. Narrative writing is about telling a story. Narrative writing has a plot, which means it has the main story with a setting where and when the story happens. The characters who have motives for what they do, so a story has events and actions. It has a central focus, a problem to be solved or a challenge to be overcome. Narrative writing में क्या होता है? It's about telling a story. Narrative writing has a plot, which means it has the main story with a setting where and when the story happens. The characters who have motives, reasons for what they do, so a story has events and actions. It has a central focus, a problem to be solved or a challenge to be overcome. Narrative writing is often about narrating or describing a person's life story. Narrative writing क्या है? It's about narrating or describing a person's life story. Important historical events or news stories because its purpose is to tell a story and to provide important facts and details. Narrative writing क्या है? It's about narrating or describing someone's life story. It's important historical events or news stories because its purpose is to tell a story and to provide important facts and details. Narrative writing is about recreating an experience. ठीक है, recreate करना, दोबारा से लिखना एक चीज़ जो हो चुकी हो उसको. A narrative writing should be based on personal experience. The important thing to remember about a narrative essay that it tells a story which focuses on an event or on a series of events. Narrative writing से क्या होता है? It tells you a story जो कि जिसमें जो किसी event या events को लेकर हो सकती है. Since a narrative tells a story, the most important thing to remember is to give as much detail as possible. जब हम बोल रहे हैं कि narrative tells a story, तो फिर हम the important thing to keep in mind is that it gives you as much details as possible to make sure that you put things in the order in which they occurred. उसी ऑर्डर में लिखा जाए जिस ऑर्डर में इंसिडेंट या इवेंट हुआ हुआ हो, इवेंट्स हुए हुए हों. The author in the occurred. Usually a narrative gives events in the order or in chronological order in which they occurred. The author gives sufficient details about the people, place and events so that the reader gets a clear idea of how the author feels about them. ऑथर आपको इतनी इन्फॉर्मेशन दे देता है कि आपको पता चल जाता है कि लोगों या जिन जगहों या जिन इवेंट्स की बात की जा रही है उसके बारे में ऑथर व्हाट ही फील्स अबाउट दैम. You must have read or heard stories like fairy tales, short stories, novels, etc. आप सबने ये सुने होंगे, at different point of times in your life. All of these are narratives. इन सबको हम narratives कहते हैं because they tell a story about something that happened. Because हमें ये पढ़कर हमें कोई कहानी पता चलती है. लाइक अगर हम नॉवल भी पढ़ें तो वो कोई स्टोरी होती है इन जो इवेंट होता है जो हो चुका होता है. शॉर्ट स्टोरीज भी ऐसी होती हैं, फेरी टेल्स भी. So it tells because they tell a story about something that happened. So yes, that's all about lecture number 10. Let's revise what we have read in today's lecture to understand things even better. Let's move on to the first slide. Introduction. What do we mean when we say I need some advice or suggestion? Well, it means that we need some ideas and some remedies, some proposals, some recommendations and of course some guidance. जब हम किसी चीज़ के हवाले से किसी चीज़ को करने के लिए डिसीजन नहीं ले पा रहे होते तो हमें किसी दूसरे बंदे के आइडियाज़ और रेमेडीज़ और रिकमेंडेशंस की ज़रूरत होती है. तो फिर हम we go to that person, we ask for advice or the suggestions. All of us need advice and suggestions for something or other. There are ways of giving advice and suggestions, and the following words and expressions are all used to make suggestions. And then you read two different tables, and then we read about clause और different elements जो clause में आ रहे होते हैं वो उसमें subject होता है, predicate होता है, object होता है, complement होता है और adjunct होता है. A complete sentence, and then I told you that a complete sentence expresses a complete thought. वो आपको एक complete meaning, एक complete sense देता है. The elements, subject and predicate are easily identifiable as there is an agreement between them. और जो complete sentence होता है उसमें आप बहुत आसानी के साथ अपना subject और predicate निकाल लेते हैं. Subject, predicate, object, then you read 2-3 examples about them, and then subject, predicate, complement, you read 3-4 examples about them also, like in this manner also. Adjunct may supply information which is additional to the message and extra information, you can say. Adjunct supplies the why, where, when and how type of information. It tells you that why something happened, where happened, when happened and how it happened. Read some examples, and then you read few examples. He was turning the handle furiously. They had a holiday last year. Then we can say that the adjunct tends to be most mobile and may be used in different positions in a clause structure. It can come in the beginning or maybe after the subject or maybe in the end. There are 4 types of clauses. These are main or independent clause, subordinate or dependent clause, relative or adjective clause, noun clause. मेन और इंडिपेंडेंट क्लॉज होता है दैट गिव्स यू द कंप्लीट मीनिंग. जैसे कि lazy students complain, Pepsi spilled over the glass and splashed onto the counter. सब ऑर्डिनेट क्लॉज क्या होता है? सब ऑर्डिनेट और डिपेंडेंट क्लॉज होता है जिसको मेन क्लॉज की ज़रूरत होती है टू गिव अ कंप्लीट मीनिंग. Then comes, here is a list of some of the frequently used subordinate conjunctions: after, although, as, because, before, even if, even though, if, in order that, once, provided that, rather than, since, so that, then, that, though, unless, until, when, whenever, where, whereas, wherever, whether, while, and why are frequently used subordinate conjunctions. And then you read few examples of the subordinate clauses, and then I told you that when it's a subordinate conjunction plus subject plus verb, it's an incomplete thought. Then there was an exercise which I told you that you will be doing it on your own, and then we'll discuss in the class, then when we'll sit in the class. Then the important point to remember about subordinate clauses that can never stand alone as a complete sentence. To complete the thought, you must attach each suitable clause to a main clause. Generally, the punctuation looks like this: main clause plus no punctuation plus subordinate clause, subordinate clause plus comma plus main clause. Then there's an exercise that you would be doing it, and then reading facts and opinions. I told you that fact is something that is truth or real. It is based on evidence, whereas an opinion is a statement that gives one's personal view. This statement may or may not be true. फैक्ट जो होता है वो रियलिटी होता है, एक ट्रूथ होता है, एक सच्चाई होती है, जबकि ओपिनियन जो होती है वो एक मतलब ओपिनियन जो आपकी राय होती है वो ठीक भी हो सकती है और वो गलत भी हो सकती है. Whenever we read something of the some of the statements can be facts and others are the writer's opinion. फिर जब हम कोई चीज़ पढ़ रहे होते हैं तो उसमें कुछ स्टेटमेंट्स जो होती हैं वो फैक्ट्स होते हैं, रियलिटी होती है, और कुछ जो होते हैं वो राइटर के ओपिनियंस होते हैं. हाँ, अगर राइटर जो है वो अपनी ओपिनियन के साथ सपोर्टिंग सेंटेंसेस डालकर आपको कन्विंस कर देता है तो यू विल फील लाइक सेइंग यस, यू विल फील लाइक अग्रीइंग विद हिज ओपिनियन. और अगर वो इतने स्ट्रॉन्ग सपोर्टिव सेंटेंसेस यूज नहीं करता, यू वोंट फील लाइक सेइंग यस. Then comes the writing, narrative writing. Narrative writing is about telling a story. Narrative writing has a plot, which means it has the main story with a setting where and when the story happens, the characters who have motives, reasons for what they do, so a story has events and actions. It has a central focus, a problem to be solved or a challenge to be overcome. Narrative writing is often about narrating or describing a person's life story, important historical events, or new stories because its purpose is to tell a story and to provide important facts and details. ठीक है, आपको बताता है किसी पर्सन की लाइफ स्टोरी के बारे में नरेटिव राइटिंग हो सकती है, कोई इम्पोर्टेंट हिस्टोरिकल इवेंट हो सकता है, कोई न्यू स्टोरीज हो सकती हैं. पर्पस क्या होता है नरेटिव राइटिंग का? टू टेल यू द होल थिंग, द होल स्टोरी, द होल इवेंट दैट हैपेंड. Narrative writing is about recreating an experience. A narrative writing should be based on personal experience. The important thing to remember about a narrative essay is that it tells a story which focuses on an event or on a series of events. Since a narrative tells a story, the most important thing to remember is to give as much details as possible and to make sure you put things in the order in which they occurred. Usually, a narrative gives events in the order or in chronological order in which they occurred. The author gives sufficient details about the people, place, and events so that the reader gets a clear idea of how the author feels about them. You must have read or heard stories like fairy tales, short stories, novels, etc. All of these are narrative because they all tell a story about something that happened. So I'm sure you would have understood today's lecture. Please go through the whole presentation and tell me if you feel like asking anything. Put a question in the questionnaire where the platform is given and you can ask easily. Take care, stay blessed, be focused in your life, and do what is good for you. Take care, bless you, see you again. Allah Hafiz.